In the scorched dunes of Viral's End, where twin suns baked the sand into glass by noon and the wind carried whispers of ancient wars, lived a boy named Joran. He was 10 years old, scrawny as a desert rat, with sun-bleached hair and eyes too wide for his face. Eyes that saw more than most adults dared to. His village, Kesra, clung to the edge of the great salt wastes like a barnacle on a dying ship, small, stubborn, and forgotten by the galaxy. Most folks there never saw an off-worlder unless it was a scavenger or a mercenary passing through, boots heavy with dust and secrets. But Joran had seen something else once, something no one believed. It happened during the Dustfall Festival, when the sky turned amber and the elders lit the bonfires to honor the fallen. A sandstorm had rolled in early that year, thick and roaring like a wounded beast. Out of its heart came a figure, tall, luminous, draped in tattered robes that shimmered like ice under moonlight. She collapsed at the edge of the oasis, her skin pale as bleached marble, her long white hair tangled with ash and blood. The villagers recoiled. They knew her kind, the Luminari, once rulers of the Seven Spires, now scattered, hunted, their empire shattered in the Human-Alien Concordance War. To shelter one was to invite death from both human militias and rival alien clans. But Joran didn't care. While others hid behind shutters, he ran forward with a clay cup of water, his bare feet kicking up red dust. She stirred, lifting her head with effort, revealing eyes like liquid silver, deep, weary, but sharp as starlight. Her name was Queen Isara, last of the Luminari royal line, though Joran wouldn't learn that until much later. That night, wrapped in his grandmother's shawl beside the fire, he listened as she spoke in a voice like wind through crystal chimes. She told him of cities built on clouds, of gardens that sang, of children who rode comets for sport. And when he asked if she had any kids of her own, her face crumpled like paper in flame. "I lost them," she whispered, "to war, to fear, to the belief that kindness is weakness." Joran, heart pounding with the reckless courage only children possess, reached out and took her cold hand. "Then I'll marry you when I grow up," he declared, chin jutting out. "So you won't be alone anymore." Isara stared at him. Then, slowly, she laughed. A sound so rare and beautiful it made the fireflies pause mid-flight. She ruffled his hair, her smile bittersweet. "Oh, little sunspark," she said. "You don't even know what marriage means." "I do," he insisted. "It means you stay, and I protect you, like you protected your people." She kissed his forehead then, a gesture so tender it branded itself into his bones. By dawn, she was gone, vanished into the dunes like mist, leaving only a single white feather on his pillow and a silence that ached for years. Time passed. The twin suns rose and set over Kesra hundreds of times. Joran grew tall and lean, his arms corded with muscle from hauling water and repairing sand skiffs. He learned to fight not with rage but with precision, after raiders from the Iron Fang Syndicate burned half the village when he was 16. He buried his grandmother that winter, her last words urging him to find the light beyond the waste. So he left, joined the Free Systems Corps not for glory, but because they trained medics as well as soldiers, and he remembered how Isara had winced when moving her shoulder. He wanted to heal, not just hurt. Years blurred into missions across asteroid belts and jungle moons. He patched up rebels, rescued refugees, even negotiated truces between warring insectoid clans using nothing but patience and dried fruit. But every night, beneath alien skies, he thought of white hair against red sand, of laughter like breaking glass, of a promise made by a boy who didn't know better. He saved credits, traded salvage, bartered for parts until he could afford passage back to Viral's End. And in a black market jeweler's den on the fringe world of Xylos, he found it. A ring forged from meteoric iron and embedded with a shard of Luminari sky gem, glowing faintly blue. It cost him 6 months' pay and a favor he'd rather forget. But he didn't hesitate. He returned to Kesra not as a boy, but as a man with scars on his knuckles and calm in his eyes. The village had changed, new walls, solar panels, even a comms tower, but the heart remained. And so did the rumors. Whispers spoke of a ghost queen seen wandering the dunes at twilight, always heading toward the ruins of the old watchtower where the Luminari once kept their sky beacons. Some said she was mad with grief. Others claimed she waited for someone. Joran went alone at dusk, boots crunching on salt-crusted earth. The tower stood crooked, half-buried, its spire broken like a snapped finger. And there she was, Isara. Older, yes, her posture still regal despite threadbare robes, her white hair longer now, braided with desert flowers. She faced the horizon, hands clasped behind her back, utterly still. He stopped 10 paces away, heart hammering like it had when he was 10. "Your Majesty," he said, voice rough. She turned slowly. Recognition flickered, then disbelief, then something deeper, wonder, maybe fear. "Joran." Her voice hadn't changed, still wind through crystal. He stepped forward, holding out the ring on his palm. "I promised." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she laughed again. That same laugh, though softer now, edged with sorrow. "You're still foolish," she murmured. "Do you even know what I've done since I left? The blood on my hands? The alliances I forged with monsters to keep my people alive. I know you lost your children," he said gently. "And I know you never stopped fighting for others' children. That's not monster work. That's mother work." Her breath hitched. Tears gathered in those silver eyes but didn't fall. "I am centuries old, Joran. You're barely 30. And yet," he said, stepping closer, "you're standing here, waiting, maybe not for me but for hope. And I brought some." Before she could reply, the ground trembled. Not an earthquake, boots. Dozens of them. From the dunes emerged figures in black armor, pulse rifles gleaming. Iron Fang mercenaries. Their leader, a hulking brute with cybernetic tusks, grinned. Well, the Ghost Queen and her pet human. "Hand over the beacon key, Isara, or we burn this whole wasteland to slag." Joran didn't flinch. He slipped the ring into his pocket and moved in front of her. "Run," he whispered. "I don't run anymore," she said, drawing herself up. From her sleeve slid a slender blade made of solidified light. The fight erupted like a sandstorm. Pulse bolts seared the air. Joran moved like water, dodging, weaving, using the ruined tower for cover. He wasn't the strongest, but he was clever. He triggered an old seismic charge buried beneath the tower's foundation, a relic from the war, sending a shockwave that knocked 3 mercenaries off their feet. Isara fought like poetry in motion, her blade humming as it severed limbs and melted armor. But they were outnumbered. A bolt grazed Joran's shoulder, spinning him to his knees. Isara screamed his name. Not as a queen, but as someone terrified of losing something precious. Then, from the ridge above, came the roar of engines. Sandskiffs, Kesra's militia, armed with jury-rigged plasma turrets. Old Man Harel, now village chief, stood at the lead, grinning through his beard. "Told you that boy'd bring trouble back," he yelled. "But we owe him our lives. Cover him." Chaos turned to rout. The mercenaries fled, dragging their wounded. Silence returned, broken only by Joran's ragged breathing and the crackle of dying energy weapons. Isara knelt beside him, pressing her hands to his wound. Her touch glowed faintly, luminary healing, slow but sure. "Why?" she asked, voice trembling. "Why come back? Why risk this for a promise made by a child?" "Because that child meant it," he said, smiling weakly. "And because I saw you cry once. Just once. When you thought I was asleep. You cried for everyone you couldn't save. I want to help you save someone, even if it's just me." She stared at him, tears finally falling, pearls that evaporated before hitting the sand. Then, without a word, she took his hand and pressed it to her chest, right over her heart. It beat slow, steady, ancient. "Feel that?" she whispered. "That's fear, and hope, and something I forgot I could feel." He nodded, pain forgotten. "You think you're offering me marriage," she said, eyes searching his. "But what you're really offering is a future. One where I'm not just a weapon or a relic. Where I can be soft again." "I'd like that," he said. She didn't take the ring then. Not yet. But she helped him stand, her arm around his waist, his around her shoulders. Together, they walked back toward Kesra as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in violet and gold. Villagers emerged, hesitant at first, then cheering, some crying. They'd heard the stories. Now they saw the truth. The boy who left had returned a man, and the Ghost Queen had found her anchor. In the days that followed, Isara didn't hide. She sat in the market, sipping bitter root tea with elders. She taught children star charts using pebbles and string. She even laughed, real laughter, at Joran's terrible jokes about space slugs and sentient cacti. And at night, they walked the dunes together, talking of lost empires and possible tomorrows. One evening, as they watched bioluminescent moths rise from the salt flats, she finally asked, What if I say no to the ring? He shrugged. Then I'll keep wearing it on a chain around my neck until you change your mind. Or until I'm too old to climb these dunes. Whichever comes first. She turned to him, moonlight catching the silver in her eyes. You realize marrying me makes you a target. Every faction that wants the Luminari throne will come for you. I've been shot at by acid-spitting beetles and negotiated with telepathic fungi, he said dryly. I think I can handle politicians. That made her laugh again. The full, bright sound that seemed to make the stars lean closer. Then, quietly, my people believe marriage isn't just vows. It's shared breath during storms. Shared silence during peace. Shared wounds and shared bread. I've got plenty of both, he said. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. Then perhaps, we begin with bread. And so they did. In the village square, under strings of lanterns powered by recycled ship batteries, they broke flatbread together. Human and Luminari, soldier and queen, boy and woman who once laughed at a promise. No grand ceremony. No galactic fanfare. Just two souls choosing each other in a desert that had known only war. But the universe wasn't done with them. Weeks later, a distress signal crackled over Kesra's comms. A Luminari refugee convoy, stranded near the Crimson Nebula, under attack by pirate fleets. Isara's face hardened. This was her people. Her responsibility. Joran simply stood, strapping on his old core vest. We'll need faster skiffs, he said. And more ammo. We? She asked. You didn't think I'd let you go alone, did you? He grinned. Besides, someone's got to remind you to eat when you're busy saving galaxies. She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in centuries, Queen Isara felt not like a relic of war, but like a woman with a future. A strange, messy, human-shaped future. And maybe, just maybe, a family. As they prepped the ships under twin moons, Joran slipped the ring from his pocket and placed it gently on the console. Not as a demand. Not as a plea. Just a quiet reminder. Promises matter. Especially the ones made in innocence. And somewhere beyond the dunes, the stars watched and waited. The Crimson Nebula loomed ahead like a wound in the sky. Vast, swirling, and stained with the blood-red gases of dead stars. Joran piloted the lead skiff, a patched-together vessel he'd retrofitted with scavenged ion thrusters and shield emitters from a derelict freighter. Beside him, Isara monitored comms, her fingers dancing over holographic controls with the grace of someone who'd once commanded fleets across solar systems. Behind them, 3 Kesran skiffs followed, each packed with volunteers. Farmers turned gunners, weavers turned engineers, even Old Man Harel gripping a plasma rifle like it was a walking stick. They found the refugee convoy near the nebula's inner rim. 5 battered Luminari transports, their hulls scorched, shields flickering. Surrounding them like vultures were the Scourge, a notorious pirate armada known for harvesting alien biotech and selling survivors to black market gene labs. Their flagship, the Bone Maw, bristled with spinal cannons and harpoon tethers designed to rip open ships and drag out their contents. 20 vessels, Joran muttered, scanning the tactical display. We've got 4. Isara's jaw tightened. The transports carry over 300 souls, mostly children and elders. They're defenseless. Then we don't fight them head-on, Joran said. We trick them. His plan was reckless, brilliant, and utterly human. Using the nebula's electromagnetic interference, they masked their approach and launched decoy drones made from old irrigation tanks and signal jammers. The pirates, thinking it was a scout probe, fired wildly, only for the drones to detonate in blinding flashes of ionized gas, scrambling their sensors. In the chaos, Joran led the Kesran fleet through a narrow asteroid belt hidden within the nebula's core. A passage so tight only small craft could navigate it. They struck from below. Plasma torpedoes tore into the underbellies of 2 pirate frigates. Harpoons missed their marks as the Bone Maw's targeting systems glitched. But just as the refugees began to power up their engines, a new signal crackled over all channels. Not pirate, not Luminari, but human military. Attention, unidentified vessels. This is Commander Vex of the Terran Concordance Enforcement Fleet. You are violating Sector 7 quarantine protocols. Stand down immediately or be destroyed. Joran's blood ran cold. The Concordance, the very alliance that had declared the Luminari extinct after the war, was here. And they didn't care about refugees. They cared about containment. Isara went pale. They'll purge the convoy. Call it decontamination. Joran switched comms to private channel. Can your people jump to hyperspace? No NAV core left, she whispered. They've been running on fumes for weeks. He exhaled sharply. Then, with a grim smile, he opened a wideband transmission. Commander Vex, this is Joran of Kesra. I'm a certified Free Systems Core Medic, ID Sigma 942. These refugees are under my medical protection. Interfering violates Galactic Health Accord Article 12. Silence. Then, Sigma 942? You're the one who negotiated the Xylos truce. Yes, sir. And if you fire on these ships, I'll file a full incident report with the Oversight Council, along with footage of your fleet ignoring distress beacons while pirates attacked. A pause. Static hissed. Finally, Vex sighed. You've got 10 minutes to extract your patients, medic. Then this sector is sealed. It wasn't mercy, it was bureaucracy. But it was enough. Under cover of the Concordance blockade, Joran and Isara docked with the lead transport. Inside, the sight stole Joran's breath. Rows of cots, children wrapped in thermal blankets, elders humming ancient lullabies. And at the center of it all stood a girl, no older than 12, with white hair like Isara's, but eyes the color of storm clouds. She stared at Isara with a mixture of awe and terror. Mother? The girl whispered. Isara froze. Her hands trembled. Lyra? Joran's heart stopped. Children. She'd said she'd lost them. But here was one alive. Lyra ran forward, throwing her arms around Isara's waist. They told us you were dead, that the humans killed you in the salt wastes. Isara sank to her knees, clutching her daughter as if she might vanish. Tears streamed down her face. Real, unguarded tears. I searched, for years. I thought you were gone. Joran stepped back, giving them space. But Lyra looked up, her gaze sharp. You're the human who saved her? Before he could answer, alarms blared. The Bone Maw had rebooted its systems. It was charging weapons, aimed not at the refugees but at the Concordance fleet. A suicide run. If it exploded near the blockade, the fallout would irradiate the entire sector. We have to stop it, Joran yelled. Isara stood, wiping her eyes. Lyra, stay with the others. Then, to Joran, there's a manual override in the Maw's engine core. Only someone small can reach it. I'll go, he said. No, Isara said firmly. I will. It's my people's weapon. My burden. But you just got her back. And I won't lose you too, she said, voice breaking. Not after waiting all this time. Before he could argue, she kissed him, quick, fierce, tasting of salt and starlight. Then she leapt into an escape pod and launched toward the Bone Maw. Joran watched, helpless, as her pod docked with the pirate ship. Minutes stretched like hours. Explosions rocked the Maw's hull. Then silence. Just as hope began to fade, Isara's voice crackled over comms. Override engaged. Core stabilizing. Tell Vex to pull back now. The Concordance fleet retreated just as the Bone Maw's engines powered down, drifting harmlessly into the nebula's embrace. Cheers erupted across the refugee ships. But Joran felt no joy, only dread. Because as Isara's pod returned, it was trailing smoke. It crash-landed in the cargo bay, hull cracked open. He ran. She was alive, but barely. A shrapnel shard had pierced her side, glowing faintly with residual radiation. Lyra sobbed beside her, pressing cloths to the wound. She needs a med bay, Joran said, voice steady despite the panic clawing his chest. Now. Back on Kesra, the village transformed overnight. The old grain silo became a makeshift infirmary. Solar arrays were rerouted to power life support units salvaged from the transports. Joran worked tirelessly, using every trick he'd learned in the core. Nanite sealants, biostimulants, even grafting desert moss with healing properties onto her wounds. But the radiation was slow poison. Luminary biology resisted human medicine. One night, as sand howled outside, Lyra approached Joran. There's a place, she said quietly. The Heartwell, deep beneath the salt wastes. It's where our ancestors drew power. It might heal her. But it's buried, Joran said. Collapsed during the war. My mother showed me the map, Lyra said, eyes gleaming. Before she left Kesra all those years ago, she hid it in your grandmother's loom. Joran remembered the strange pattern in the weave, the one that never made sense. He rushed to the old house, dug beneath the floorboards, and found a crystal tablet pulsing with soft light. It displayed a map leading to a cavern beneath the dunes. With the village's help, they excavated the entrance. What they found took Joran's breath away. a vast underground chamber, walls lined with luminous crystals, a pool of liquid light at its center. The Heartwell, source of the Luminari's vitality. They carried Isara inside. As her body touched the pool, the light surged upward, wrapping around her like living silk. For hours, nothing happened. Then her fingers twitched. Her eyes opened. She saw Joran first, then Lyra, then the ring still hanging on his chain, glinting in the well's glow. "You came back," she whispered. "I always do," he said. But their reunion was short-lived. Days later, a sleek diplomatic cruiser descended on Kessra. Not Concordance, not pirates, but the Azure Dominion, a rising alien empire that claimed descent from the Luminari. Their envoy, a tall woman with silver tattoos and eyes like polished obsidian, stepped onto the sand and bowed deeply. "Queen Isara," she said, "the Dominion has waited generations for your return. The throne is yours. All we ask is that you renounce your human ties. Our laws forbid union with off-world species, especially humans." Joran's stomach dropped. Isara's face hardened. "I am not your queen," she said. "I am a mother, and a woman who chooses her own path." The envoy's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Then the Dominion will withdraw its protection. And when the Concordance returns, with warrants for harboring extinct aliens, you'll have no allies." That night, Joran found Isara on the dune ridge, staring at the stars. "You should take the offer," he said quietly. "For Lyra, for your people." She turned, eyes blazing. "And abandon you? After everything?" "You'd be safe," he said. "Happy." "Safe isn't living," she snapped. Then softer, "Joran, what if I told you the Luminari can bond souls, not just bodies? That marriage, for us, isn't just vows. It's a merging of lifespans, memories, even pain. If I marry you, I take your mortality. Age. I die, like you." He stared at her. "You'd give up eternity. For me? I'd give up everything," she said. "For a life that means something." Before he could respond, the ground shook. Not from engines, but from beneath. The Heartwell was reacting to her decision. Cracks spread across the desert. The crystals in the cavern pulsed faster, brighter. A voice, ancient and resonant, echoed in their minds. "The last heir chooses love over legacy. The well awakens." From the depths rose not just light, but a ship. Sleek, organic, shaped like a crescent moon, humming with dormant power. The dawn chariot, Isara breathed. The royal vessel hidden for centuries. The Azure Dominion envoy watched from her cruiser, face unreadable. Then she turned and left without a word. Weeks passed. Isara recovered fully, her strength returning tenfold. Lyra bonded with the village children, teaching them star songs. And Joran? He stood before Isara one evening, the ring finally in his hand. "I know what you're offering," he said. "Your life, your future, your death. And I'm saying yes. Not because I'm brave, but because I can't imagine a universe where I walk away from you." She took the ring, slipped it onto her finger. It glowed blue, then fused with her skin. A permanent bond. But fate wasn't done twisting. A month later, a coded message arrived from deep space. It was from Ethan Rourke, Joran's old Corps commander, presumed dead in the Xylos campaign. The message was simple. They lied about the war. The Luminari didn't start it. Humans did. Project Cleanslate. Find the truth before they silence us all. Attached was a data chip containing classified files. Orders signed by high-ranking Concordance officials, authorizing false flag attacks on Luminari colonies to justify extermination. Isara read the files, her face turning to stone. They made us monsters, so they could play saviors. Joran clenched his fists. Then we exposed them. But as they prepared to broadcast the truth across the galaxy, a new threat emerged. Not from humans or aliens, but from the Heartwell itself. The awakening had drawn something ancient from the void. The Vorath energy parasites that fed on sentient civilizations. They'd slumbered for eons, waiting for a spark of unity to reignite their hunger. Now, drawn by the bond between human and Luminari, they descended upon Viral's end. Not with ships, but with shadows that swallowed light, fear that unraveled minds. The final battle wouldn't be fought with guns or blades, but with trust. And as the twin suns rose over a desert no longer barren but blooming with strange, luminous flowers, Joran took Isara's hand, Lyra at their side, the dawn chariot humming behind them. The promise of a boy had become the foundation of a new world. And the story? It was only just beginning. The Vorith came not as invaders, but as whispers, voices in the wind that mimicked loved ones, shadows that pooled in the corners of eyes and fed on doubt. Within hours of their arrival, half the village was paralyzed by nightmares made real. Old man Harel saw his dead wife accusing him of cowardice. Children screamed about monsters under their beds that wouldn't vanish at dawn. Even Lyra trembled in her sleep, whispering, "You left us again, mother." Isara stood at the edge of the oasis, her white hair glowing faintly in the unnatural twilight the Vorith cast over the dunes. "They don't consume flesh," she said, voice low. "They consume connection. The stronger the bond between beings, the sweeter the feast." Joran understood instantly. "They're drawn to us, to our bond." She nodded. "If we break it, they lose interest. If we stay together, they'll devour everything we've built." He looked at her, really looked, at the woman who'd laughed at a boy's promise, who'd fought empires for scraps of hope, who'd chosen mortality for love. And he knew with terrifying clarity what had to be done. That night, beneath a sky choked with swirling void mist, Joran gathered the villagers. He didn't speak of sacrifice. He spoke of strategy. "The Vorith feed on emotional resonance," he explained. "So we give them silence, not fear, stillness, like the desert after a storm." Using Isara's knowledge of luminary mental disciplines and Joran's core training in psychological resilience, they taught the villagers to shield their minds, not by blocking emotion, but by grounding it in shared rhythm. They sang old Kesran work songs in unison. They wove communal tapestries, each thread representing a memory, a hope, a name. They turned vulnerability into architecture. But the Vorith adapted. They began manifesting physically, shimmering figures with hollow eyes and too many limbs, feeding directly on the strongest emotional nodes. And the strongest node was Joran and Isara's bond, now sealed by the ring fused to her skin. One evening, as Joran repaired a water condenser, a Vorith took Isara's form and whispered, "Leave him. He'll die before you even begin to age." Is that love or cruelty? Joran didn't flinch. "You're not her," he said. "She'd never ask me to abandon hope." The false Isara dissolved into smoke. But the real test came when the Vorith targeted Lyra. They showed her visions of Joran betraying her mother, of him siding with the Concordance, of him walking away from Kesra forever. Terrified, Lyra confronted Isara. "Do you trust him? Really?" Isara knelt, cupping her daughter's face. "More than I trust my own breath." That declaration became the turning point. The next morning, Joran proposed something radical. "We don't hide our bond," he said. "We amplify it. We make it so pure, so unbreakable, that the Vorith can't digest it. They'll choke on it." Isara's eyes widened. "A resonance cascade. If we open ourselves completely, mind, heart, soul, the energy might overload them." "It's dangerous," Lyra warned. "If you lose control, you could burn out your own neural pathways." Joran smiled. "Worth it." At the Heartwell, they stood hand in hand, the dawn chariot hovering above like a silent guardian. The villagers formed a circle around them, humming the same note, a single tone of unity. Joran closed his eyes and let go of every wall he'd ever built. He remembered his grandmother's hands kneading bread, the smell of rain on dry earth, the first time he saw Isara laugh. He poured it all into the bond. Isara did the same, centuries of grief, centuries of waiting, the joy of finding her daughter, the quiet miracle of being seen not as a queen, but as a woman. She gave him everything. Light erupted from the Heartwell. Not blinding, but warm, golden, alive. It surged through the desert, through the village, through every living thing. The Vorith shrieked, their forms unraveling like smoke in sunlight. They hadn't come for food, they'd come for a spark. And instead, they found a sun. When it was over, the sky cleared. The twin suns shone bright and clean. The Vorith were gone. Not destroyed, but transformed. Their hunger transmuted into something gentler, drifting into the cosmos like seeds on the wind. Exhausted, Joran collapsed. Isara caught him, cradling his head in her lap. His pulse was weak, his skin cold. "You gave too much," she whispered, tears falling onto his face. But then Lyra pressed her palm to his chest, and the Heartwell answered. Light flowed from her into him, not as healing, but as welcome. The ring on Isara's finger pulsed once, then dimmed to a soft blue ember. Joran opened his eyes. "Did we win?" Isara kissed his forehead. "We chose each other." That's always winning. In the weeks that followed, the truth about Project Cleanslate spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Concordance fractured. Rebellions flared on human colonies. Alien factions once at war began talking about reparations, about coexistence. And at the center of it all stood Kesra, no longer a forgotten village, but a beacon. The Azure Dominion returned, not with demands, but with an offer: full recognition of the Luminary Remnant, protection under interstellar law, and a seat on the newly forming Galactic Accord Council. Their envoy bowed deeply to Isara and Joran. "You didn't just save your people," she said. "You reminded us all what civilization is supposed to mean." Isara accepted, but only if Kesra remained sovereign, and if Joran served as co-representative. "No more thrones," she declared. "Only tables where everyone has a chair." And then, quietly, without fanfare, they married. Not in a palace, but in the oasis at dawn. No guests beyond the villagers, Lyra, and a few refugee children who'd become part of Kesra's family. Joran wore his old core jacket, patched and faded. Isara wore a simple robe woven from desert silk and Hartwell threads. They exchanged no vows, just held hands and stepped into the water together, letting the light of the well seal their union in silence. Years passed. The Dawn Chariot became a schoolship, ferrying children of all species to learn history, healing, and how to listen. Lyra grew into a diplomat with her mother's grace and her father's stubborn kindness. Though Joran wasn't her blood father, she called him Papa from the day he carried her through a sandstorm to safety. They adopted 2 more children, a green-skinned orphan from the salt wastes and a cybernetically enhanced boy rescued from a pirate lab, and their home echoed with laughter, arguments, and bedtime stories. Joran never stopped being a medic. He trained a whole generation of field healers, human and alien alike. Isara never stopped being a queen, but her crown was the respect in her people's eyes, not jewels on her brow. And every evening, without fail, they walked the dunes together, hand in hand, watching the twin suns set. One night, as stars pricked the velvet sky, Joran leaned his head on her shoulder. "Remember that boy who promised to marry you?" Isara smiled, fingers lacing through his. "I thought he was ridiculous. And now, she said softly, "I think he was the bravest thing this broken galaxy ever made." Far below, in the Hartwell, the light pulsed gently, steady, enduring, like a heartbeat shared between 2 souls who dared to believe that love could outlast war, outshine fear, and bloom even in the harshest desert. And in that moment, under endless stars, with children sleeping safely in their beds and peace humming in the wind, the promise made by a boy finally came true. Not in grandeur, but in the quiet, daily miracle of a life built together. Years later, under the twin suns of Viral's End, Joran and Isara sat on their porch, hands clasped, watching their children chase luminous moths through the garden. The Dawn Chariot rested nearby, now a schoolhouse with chalk-scrawled equations on its hull. Kesra thrived, not as a relic of war, but as a crossroads of species and stories. Lyra, green-skinned little Mira, and cybernetic Tarek called them both Mama and Papa without hesitation. The ring on Isara's finger had long since faded to a soft glow, no longer a symbol of promise, but of home. Peace wasn't the absence of danger, it was the choice to build anyway. And they had built well. A family, a village, a future stitched together with kindness and stubborn hope. When travelers asked how it all began, elders would smile and say, "With a boy's foolish vow and a queen who dared to believe." Now, as the desert wind hummed through blooming salt vines, Joran leaned over and kissed Isara's temple. "Still worth it?" he whispered. She squeezed his hand, eyes bright. "Every single grain of sand."